Welcome to day 9 of Let's Get Exam Ready. Today we move on to our final unit from the paper 1. It's the sociocultural approach. Just to recap, we're trying to make sure that for every short answer question, we have both studies and knowledge for our revision notes. And in essay response questions, we're thinking about knowledge, studies, and also critical thinking. The videos are a suggestion of one way you can revise your topics to make sure you're incorporating all these key elements for your responses. As you can see, we've moved on to a different colour system for sociocultural approach, and this is a nice strategy to use for your revision notes. Make sure that your 3 topics from paper 1 all have a different colour, so that way hopefully you'll be less likely to get confused, and when you have a sociocultural question, you'll think of your revision notes which are in a blue colour, and you'll recall information hopefully easier in the exam. Bio has its own colour and cognitive has its own colour as well. You might like to apply this system to your revision notes. The sociocultural approach is broken down into 3 main topics for both SL and HL, but remember the higher level extension would be an additional topic which will be covered in a future video. The 3 topics are broken down into further 7 subtopics, and today we're looking at the first topic of the individual and the group. The first 2 subtopics of this topic are key theories in psychology. It's important to not get them confused with each other. They sound similar, but they're very different. So remember, social identity theory is Tajfeld's theory, and social cognitive theory is Bandura's theory. There are 2 components to subtopic 3. The first is how stereotypes are formed. How are they created? It's important to be able to know a theory to explain this, such as illusory correlation, and a relevant study that can show this. The second component is the effects on behaviour. If stereotypes exist, how can they affect a person's behaviour? Stereotype threat is a key concept that can be used here, and again it'd be necessary to know a relevant study that illustrates the idea of stereotype threat. It's important to be able to address both elements of subtopic 3. A short answer question could ask you to only focus on one of the elements, whereas an essay response question is more likely to allow you to look at both or either. Examples of possible questions are shown later on in the video. You'll notice the term social groups is in black here to highlight that this can only be included in a possible short answer question. Tajfeld talks about social groups and the idea of a social identity. We may belong to many different social groups, and Tajfeld's research can be used for an SAQ question about social groups. On the next slide, we've got lots of key terms and concepts relevant for each of the subtopics. The studies, it's up to you. Use the studies that you know, that you've looked at in your class. 2 studies for each subtopic as a recommendation to allow you to be able to answer an essay response question for each of the possible subtopics. And remember, don't forget, research methods and ethics can come at what we call the topic level. So you can use any of the studies from your table to help you explain what research methods are used. And for ethical considerations, you can refer to anything from this table to help you discuss what relevant ethical considerations are important when we're investigating the individual and the group. If you see the term the individual and the group in a question in your paper 1 exam, you can refer to anything from the 3 subtopics here. The first column of fancy or keywords is relevant to the social identity theory. These are key concepts that you should be aiming to include in your response to help demonstrate knowledge of social identity theory. The middle column, the keywords here are relevant to social cognitive theory. And in the final column, we have the concept of illusory correlation, which is a theory that can be used to help show knowledge of how stereotypes are formed. And stereotype threat is a concept that you can use to demonstrate knowledge of how to show the effects on behaviour of stereotypes. And finally, some possible short answer questions and essay response questions that you can plan out for your revision notes and think about what knowledge you would include, what studies you would include, and also what critical thinking you would include for your essay response questions. As always, if you have any questions about today's video, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or provide any further clarification.